Welcome, everyone. I would like to acknowledge our co-conference chair who is in the room, and that is Lisa Thompson. Thank you so much, Lisa, for joining us and for taking on that role. And I'm not going to acknowledge our guest speaker just yet because she is going to get a full introduction when we bring her on stage. I would, however, like to introduce our co-presenter this evening, Deborah Wiener. Deborah is a double DTM, past division director and past area director and past lots of club officer positions, and has been serving as an educational trainer this year for a number of educational sessions, including our popular How to Run an Excellent Club Meeting series, which will be updated and presented again beginning in January. And now to you, Deborah.
I'd like to introduce Sally Philbin, D57's own program quality director, DTM, and former district D57 winner in the speech evaluation contest. We're going to have an overview of the purpose of a speech evaluation. It's got several components, and as you can see in the screen, they're to support the speaker, reinforce excellence, and to encourage improvement, which is why we're all here at Toastmasters. Now let's get to the good stuff. What is the purpose of a speech evaluation? It's twofold. It teaches listening skills, improvisational skills, as the evaluator pulls together their thoughts and provides feedback to the speaker within a matter of minutes. It also provides practice for the evaluator on how to present a well-balanced, helpful, and supportive evaluation. And secondly, the speaker has an opportunity to grow and develop as a speaker by receiving this feedback that both reinforces excellence and encourages improvement. While it's important and to be supportive and positive, it's equally important to provide at least one or two suggestions for consideration on how the speaker might up their game. And this goes for even what we consider a perfect speech. Sally, I'm very excited this evening to turn the stage back to you so that you can introduce our guest speaker of the evening.
All right. It gives me great pleasure to introduce Maria Martinez, member of a District 57 corporate club, Hensel Phelps Toastmasters Club. At Hensel Phelps, Maria is a project estimator for the Northern California region. So help me welcome Maria as she presents Elevate Your Evaluations. Am I close? Welcome, Maria.
Thank you, guys. Let me get up here and stand up for this. Thank you, fellow Toastmasters. It's an honor to be with you this evening to talk about a topic that is near and dear to my heart. As Sally mentioned, I've had the luxury and the privilege of working with her to get our corporate Toastmasters group set up and running. And when trying to think about how to increase our membership, I really had to reflect on what makes our group unique. And I'm here to share with you some of the thoughts that I shared with our corporate group. How many of you in here have thought before, I wonder if I'm doing my job correctly? Or, did that speech go as bad as I think it did? Or maybe even, am I doing this parenting thing right? Wouldn't it be nice if somebody could give you some helpful and actionable feedback that you could use to improve whatever area of your life you wanted? Wouldn't it be twice or three times as nice if you could do that for someone else and help them improve? That's what makes this group unique. That's what makes us special. We have the opportunity to provide beneficial and motivational evaluations to further encourage our people to become better public speakers, which in turn increases their confidence, their self-esteem, their leadership skills. But some of you may be wondering, well, how do I do that? Giving effective feedback can be challenging. I'm here to demystify it and give you just two main things to think about the next time that you're evaluating someone. We're going to look at tone and content. How you say stuff matters. Typically, the first response or the initial response of a person being evaluated is dependent upon the evaluator's tone and gestures. Think about when your parents maybe have tried to give you some advice and you might have thought, oh, not again. Perhaps it was the tone that they approached you with or the gestures that they used. If you pretend I have a lectern here, if you get up to the lectern and you say, no, Tommy, I loved your speech. That was great. Does that seem genuine? Does it seem like I mean that? When you're sharing something positive about someone's speech, in this case, you want to make sure that you mean it and that you show it with your eyes, your body language, your tone, your gestures. For example, I can come up here and say, Tiffany, I loved your introduction. The way you were describing the fall, the leaves of the trees in the fall as they fell. It just made me feel like I was in Central Park with you. That seems a lot more genuine, doesn't it? So that was tone. The next thing we want to focus on is content. We want to provide effective content. And for that, I want to give you something to remember, which are the 3 M's. We want measured content, meaningful content, and motivational content. When I say measured, we're going to think about the 3 G's. Some of you know it as a sandwich. It's a glow, growth, and glow component. When you're providing the grow component of this sandwich, you want to make sure that you're giving actionable tips, things that maybe you would have done in their shoes. And you want to make sure that the recommendations fit that person's capabilities and it's something that they can do within the next speech or 2 speeches. For example, instead of providing feedback like, hey, Lisa, next time try not to read down from your paper so much. Instead, you could say, Lisa, I felt like you really connected with your audience when you held eye contact, and I would love to see more from you next time. The next part of the content that we want is we want content to be meaningful. In order for content to be meaningful, it needs to be specific and it needs to look forward. When you want to give that glow component of your evaluation, you want to be specific about that person's or that speaker's strengths. You want to highlight those strengths. For example, I could say, Kate, I found the humor in your story to be very engaging and it was effective because it was relatable. I also have been through X, Y, and Z. You also want your content to look forward. You want to focus on what the person did really well, and you don't want to dwell on what they didn't do so well. Instead of saying, Rosemary, next time try not to stand behind the lectern so much, grabbing it like this. Instead, you could say, Rosemary, I thought your message was very impactful, but I think you could elevate that next time by having some more gestures, maybe raising your arms a little bit, maybe even walking in front of the lectern for some time and then walking back. Lastly, we want our content to be motivational. For it to be motivational, it needs to answer 2 questions. Does the person that is being evaluated walk away feeling good? I don't know about you guys, but for me to continue wanting to do something, for me to continue wanting to improve, I got to feel good about it. And the next, do they know what to do? Have you provided enough specific and future-oriented suggestions that they know what to do next time or they know where to start? Think back on the questions that I asked earlier. I wonder if I'm doing my job correctly. Did that speech go okay? Am I doing this parenting thing right? Now imagine receiving the feedback that we just talked about. Wouldn't you feel thankful and invigorated and ready to act on it? If you're able to combine the right tone with measured, meaningful, and motivational content when you provide an evaluation, whether that is to a speaker, an employee, heck, maybe even your kid, your husband, you're going to be benefiting that person much more than you can imagine. So I encourage you all to go out there, give it a try, and let me know how it goes. Thank you.
Thank you. Wow. What do you guys think about this presentation tonight? Do you have any questions? And if you'll raise your electronic hand, I think that will help me to see you. Rosemary, yes.
Sorry. Thank you. Sorry, I cannot turn on my camera at this time. But for our presenter, that was very good information. Thank you so much. It can be used right away. But I got the 3 M's: measured, meaningful, motivational. However, when you were describing meaningful, I did not get the information. And I got that to be measured. There are the G's: grow, glow, and I did not get the other one.
What was the third one?
Grow. So you're making a sandwich. So you have a growth component, or sorry, a glow component, a growth component, and a glow again. So you're ending on a positive note.
Okay. Glow and glow. And the meaningful, when you broke it down.
So for meaningful content, you want to make sure that it's specific and looking forward. So all 3, you know, they both relate to each other in some way or another. But yeah, for meaningful, you want it to be specific. When you're talking about the glow portion, you want to not just say that the speech was good, but what about it was it good? Give a specific example.
Yeah.
And when you give suggestions, you want to look forward in the future, not dwell on what they did wrong that time.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Kania, you have a question?
Sorry. Yeah. Well, actually, I don't have a question. I just want to say thank you. That was a wonderful speech, and it does give a lot of content, you know, and then your tone is really nice. So it's easy listening and it helps.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank
My
you
pleasure.
so much. Tiffany.
Oh, thank you. Wonderful speech. I have a question. Usually when we're in Toastmasters, we have 2 to 3 minutes to think about what we want to, what feedback we want to give to the speakers. So my question is, how do you, like your speech, it was very organized. Like, how do you keep that in mind when you are kind of on the fly trying to come up with the evaluation when you're responding to someone? Do you have something written down, or is this something you just memorize and you know this format?
Yeah, so when I'm listening to someone, I have, you know, I divide my paper into basically positive and not negative, but areas for improvement. And so as I'm listening, I'm taking notes. And due to the limited amount of time, I'm really just focusing on 2 or 3 things. You know, I'm not going into 10, 11 things that they did right. So that's one thing. And then I just try to keep it within that sandwich that we talked about. And I do take notes of specific examples so that I can, you know, just looking at a word on my paper, I can talk about it because I remember that that's what that person was discussing.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're
Awesome.
welcome.
Are there any other questions or thoughts?
I had a question specifically. So my name is Naveen. I was wondering.
Hi, Naveen.
Hi, Valley. I was wondering what, for measured content, what, would you mind elaborating on the definition of that again?
Elaborating on the definition of measured content?
Yes.
That's really just talking about the glow, growth, glow sandwich. And when we say measured, you're giving specific examples in each of those topics or each of those areas that essentially the person can go back to and reference or measure against. So instead of just providing adjectives of your speech was nice or it was funny, I enjoyed it, you want to be specific as to what parts you liked about it so that they can go back and say, okay, well, that worked really well this time around. Maybe next time I can incorporate a little bit more of that.
Yeah, and that's a great example because it relates almost directly back to, you may be familiar with the SMART goals, and part of SMART goals is that they are measurable and specific, and that's what that relates to.
Sounds good.
All right. Well, Maria, thank you. I've really put you on the spot tonight, and you did fabulously. I thank you, and you are more than welcome to stay for the entire session if you would like to.
Thank you,
so
guys.
now we will move on. Deborah, take it from here.
We're going to go deeper and have a deeper dive into what goes into great speech evaluations. And we're going to approach it by walking through the organization of the speech, which is the introduction, the body of the speech, which may have the devil in the details, as we say, and the call to action and the conclusion. Now, how to think about your evaluation. The introduction should grab attention, make people want to listen, turn off those cell phones, put their purses away. It should be creative, interesting, sometimes shocking, by asking a question at the beginning or throughout the speech. First, let's talk about the introduction. Now, does it grab the audience's attention? Again, for example, a question might be, or an introduction. Did you know that 11 out of 12 puppies are born in puppy mills? And people will go, I want to hear more about this. Is it creative? Like, does it tell an engaging story, an interesting story that the audience, they can't just wait to hear what's going to come next? Like something like, I woke up in the morning in the middle of the forest, knowing that I would have to find my way to be here to present this speech today. And then we want to hear more and have words that are creative within the story also, and not just matter of fact. Usually you don't want it to be a flat speech. And again, you're using different levels of tone to create interest. Is it interesting? Unlike the popular myth, as here's an example, Agatha Christie did not disappear for a period of time while actively writing her books. Shocking. But she didn't. And don't drink that water. It could be dangerous. And you go, okay, I better put my water bottle down here. Does the speech start with a question? It's always nice to have a question at the beginning of the speech, and then people will perk up and listen and go, how does that relate to me? Do I know the answer to that question? So how many of you, here's an example that I thought would be interesting. How many of you have stopped to consider that a relationship that you're in today might be vastly different if you became your authentic self? And then, of course, you're not looking for all of these, but one might just be the effective intro that will take the speaker to new heights. Just some examples, things for you to think about. So when we get to, now we're going to think about the body. the body of the evaluation. It's important to, as you can see on the screen, state the purpose of your evaluation. What is it that the speaker was wanting to accomplish in this speech? Was it organized? Did they paint a picture in your mind? And did they build to the point of gaining the goal that they set out to accomplish? So did the speaker state a purpose at the beginning? It's this evening I would like to have you travel with me as I hunt for the meaning behind this event. That's just kind of leading the person on a journey. It's like, where are we going? So setting them up to know what to expect. And of course, is the speech well organized? And as you can see here, we're not only giving evaluation information, we're giving information about a well-planned speech. So when you're evaluating, you're looking at how well was the speech organized? Did it include 3 main points that are supported and backed up by facts or examples that relate to each of those 3 sections of the speech? And did the speaker paint a picture so that you felt like you were right there with them? Like, let me take you back to 1961, when I was 10 years old in Lakeport, Michigan, etc. Did the speaker bring you along to the final and main point for making the speech? Do the main points build upon each other toward the main idea, or do they take you off into a different direction, off into the sunset where you're lost and you're thinking, they started here, they went there, and gosh, no, I don't even know what they're talking about. We may have all heard some of those, but maybe, hopefully not. Then we're going to move on to the devil in the details, where we're going to notice the eye contact, the tone of the voice, the vocal variety, and the gestures or body language, the pacing, and did they use some props or visual aids as appropriate, depending if they're in person or on Zoom. And I'll talk about these devil in the details points. These details make up a major aspect to your helpful evaluation. Eye contact. Now, did they maintain eye contact with the audience throughout the whole speech? Or did you notice maybe that they were looking up, because sometimes people do look up to gather their thoughts? Or were they looking at their notes or reading their speech? Things to notice. Vocal variety, again, is something that's, as our speaker spoke about, Maria, it's very important to vary your tone and accentuate words during your speech and telling the main ideas, your story, or the opening and closing, where if you accentuate during those times, it'll draw your audience in and land the message. Now, gestures and body language and pacing. Gestures, especially if you're on Zoom, a lot of times it's important to make sure you have that camera so people can actually see your hands. Some people don't stand up during their speeches, and sometimes when they do, they're so far back, it's really, you wouldn't even be able to see if where their eyes were, because based on the screen. So it does depend whether it's an in-person meeting or a hybrid or a Zoom meeting. So did they work the stage, as Toastmasters likes to call it? Did they start with one idea, plant their feet, then move back and forth, depending if you have a stage, if you have the room for that? And did they accentuate the 3 main ideas with either their tone, their hands, their body language? Could you see their hand gestures in the Zoom meeting? Some people, you can just see their face. So it's important, because when we can see your hands, we can at least see that you're excited, or sometimes it'll accentuate, again, a main idea. And if they had props like PowerPoint or other visual aids, did they use them and how well did they use them? Were they effective? How to think about your evaluation. The call to action can basically make or break your speech. It's like, was this speech something that the audience gained some kind of benefit from? Did they learn something? Did it help change their behavior in some way? Did it help them think deeply about, how does this relate to me? And how can it help change my life and the way I do things? Was there a major takeaway? And a major takeaway is, again, was there a benefit to the audience? Are they going to leave here remembering the speaker? And is it something that can help them that they would look back and go, oh, I remember that speech. I remember that person. And now I understand that using certain words should be eliminated from my vocabulary, or understanding the benefit of specific words. So was it memorable is very important. Yeah, how to think about your evaluation, and the conclusion signals the end of your speech. Did you convey to the audience that you're wrapping up? Did you sum up your points and what it is that you are conveying to the audience?
Did the speaker do those things?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, I'm talking about the speaker. And again, sometimes some of the things we're talking about can also work for both.
Mm-hmm.
But
It's true.
concluding at the end of your speech is very important to kind of wrap things up. And one thing, and a few words it's best that we do not say, that we again delete from our vocabulary are, in conclusion. We will wrap it up by not saying those words, by again bringing together all of the main points that we were talking about. Shoulds are not in your speech and as an evaluator, using the word should. And actually in regular life, I was told I was shoulding too much. So should is not in here on this page, but shoulding and the word sorry. So, and we also don't talk about what we didn't talk about, because I have also heard that. I've heard that in a speech, that what we were not going to talk about. All right, so then we are moving on, and I'm going to hand it back to our Sally Philbin to talk about some really interesting points.
All right. Thank you, Deborah. You have listened to a fabulous speech. You are pulling together your thoughts. Now it's all about how are you going to present that information to the speaker and to the audience? Because of course, evaluations are effective for both the audience members and the speaker, to give them all an opportunity to learn from what the speaker has done. And there are a couple of different methods that I would like to go over. The first is the sandwich method, which we learned a little bit about from Maria's presentation. And then there's another method called the heard, saw, felt method. So I will share the sandwich method with you. I don't know whether this picture is big enough for you to really see it, but it's how to give a constructive criticism sandwich. The tastiest way to give a team member feedback. You want to begin with positive comments, the glow regarding the situation in question. You want to give praise for the person's strong points. You want to give this praise in specific terms, measurable terms, so that they know what you're talking about. You also have to have gathered together all of those thoughts and then decide which ones you're going to share, because you don't have an hour to give this feedback. You've got 2 to 3 minutes. And so you need to prioritize. Sometimes, now this is not the case in a speech contest, but if it's a club speech, you have probably spoken to that club member and they've shared with you what specific things they want you to be looking at. And so, of course, those go to the top of your priority list in terms of what to comment on, what to mention. For a contest speech, you have no opportunity to talk to the contestants, and in fact, you're not to talk to the contestants. So you want to craft an evaluation that gives the broadest possible feedback with the highest level of specificity so that they can take that feedback and actually decide whether or not it's useful for them and whether they want to include it in their next presentation. Give compliments. Now we get to the how we can do it better. This says give the criticism. Now, you know, criticism is actually not a negative word. It has acquired a negative connotation. When you're giving a critique, you're giving the pros and you're giving the cons. But because the word criticism has acquired a negative connotation, and yes, I got this slide up here that uses that word, I would rather use give thoughts for possible improvements, thoughts on how the person might make some changes if they think it would be helpful to them. 2 or 3 maybe, at least 2, so that they have something to work with, so the audience has something to work with. I have listened to speech evaluations where the evaluator is so undone by how fabulous the speech was that they can't think of even one thing to say that might make it better. Frankly, this has nothing to do with whether you're a longtime Toastmaster or a brand new Toastmaster. We learn to speak so that we can speak outside of Toastmasters, so that we can make our thoughts known and clear to whom? Our bosses, our family, the people we work for, our clients. There's the word I was looking for. We want folks to hear our message. So if you are giving a speech evaluation and you haven't been in Toastmasters very long, in some cases, you're a better evaluator than those of us that have been around for a long time, because you're listening to the speech with fresh ears. What is your fresh reaction to that presentation? Did you really understand the message? Is there some little thing that they might have done differently that would have helped you hear that message more clearly? And that's what you're looking for. It may seem nitpicky, but that's okay. Because if the speech is that good, then the person needs to hear the nitpicky things to raise it, to elevate it just that little bit more. Remind the person of their strong points. So you don't end on a note of, wow, I really wish you had done this. But you end on the strong points. You remind the person of all the things that they've done really well. And you give thanks. You offer support in the areas for improvement and leave on a positive note. What you don't do as an evaluator is to apologize for not giving as good an evaluation as you thought you might have. Likewise, as a speaker, you do not thank the audience for taking their time to listen to you, and you do not apologize to them if you have forgotten something within your speech, because guess what? You, the speaker, are the only one who knows if you've left something out. Same as being the evaluator. You are the only one who knows what you were hoping to convey to that speaker. There's no need to apologize or feel bad about what you've been able to share. So this is the sandwich method. Some really good stuff, few things to tweak a little bit, perhaps if the speaker thinks that's a good idea, and a summary of the great things that that speaker did. There's another method that's a little bit new to me, but I've been hearing it a lot, and it's called the heard, saw, felt method. You organize your thoughts from the point of view, what did I hear? What did I hear in your presentation today? I heard you say X, Y, and Z. I heard you say that you wanted me to do such and so. I heard your vocal variety. I heard your tone. I heard your pauses. What did I see in your presentation? I saw your gestures. I saw your facial expressions. I saw the intensity with which you gave your presentation today. And what did I feel? I felt your investment in the topic that you were covering. I felt moved to take action based on your call to action. There are things that you might think about in these various areas. I would have liked to have heard such and so a little bit more. I would have liked to have heard a little bit more background. I saw your gestures, but because of your camera placement, they were mostly below the level of your box. Perhaps thinking about setting your camera in such a way that I can see your gestures most effectively. Don't forget about eye contact, because eye contact helps me to feel the emotions that you're conveying. Overall, I heard, I saw, I felt your presentation today, and it moved me to action. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here today to speak to us. So those are a couple of ideas on some different methodologies in how to structure your evaluation. I've heard both at speech contests. I've not done a survey to see which type wins most often, but I've seen them both used, and I know they're both effective. So a few things not to do when you're evaluating a presentation. Don't repeat back a summary of the speech. Don't tell us what the speaker just said. We heard what the speaker just said. You've got 2 to 3 minutes to make an impactful evaluation, so please don't spend part of that time reiterating the speech. Don't meander from point to point. What you want is an organized evaluation. It doesn't matter which methodology you use. You want an organized evaluation. I'm going to share with you some things that I really liked about your speech that really motivated me. There were a couple of things that maybe you might have done differently. But all in all, these are I'm going to then share with you the things that I really, really appreciated. And then do it and go through those steps. Same with the heard, saw, felt. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what I heard, what I saw, what I felt, and then do that. Don't begin your conclusion by saying in conclusion, and that goes for the speaker as well. What you want to do is tailor your remarks so that you are drawing your audience to your conclusion. They can feel you starting to wrap up what you have to say. And those are things that you can think about as you're putting together that evaluation. Now, in some clubs, back to the club speech evaluation, some clubs, the evaluations are right after the speech, and the evaluator literally has 2 to 3 minutes to prepare, and then boom, they're giving their evaluation. In other clubs, the evaluations are placed as part of the general evaluation portion of the meeting. So the person has the balance of the meeting to put their thoughts together. In a speech contest, the individual has 5 minutes to write out their notes, make an outline, and they write it on a piece of paper. And then those notes are collected by the sergeant at arms. And when they're called into the room to give their evaluation, that piece of paper that they prepared is handed back to them. Now, I will admit, if you are not the first evaluator, you have that time that you're waiting to think it through, to walk it through. So there is some advantage to not being the first evaluator. You can't make any more notes. You can't write anything down, but you can think about what you want to say. As an evaluator, just like as a speaker, think of an opening that grabs the attention of the audience. One of the things that I used to do when I was in the contest circuit, if you will, on speech evaluation, was I would mirror the approach that the speaker took. Sometimes they have a first statement, and I said, don't paraphrase, but if they have a first statement that grabbed that audience, repeat that first statement and make it impactful, and then talk about why that was a great, impactful first statement for them to use. And then move on as you are evaluating the rest of their speech in whichever methodology you choose. That's a thought. Then depending on the evaluation methodology you use, you organize your thoughts accordingly. And I covered that just a little bit already. But that's one thing. And what Maria said about having her paper already divided up so that as she made notes, she placed those notes in the section on her piece of paper where she wanted it to fall for her evaluation and for her feedback to make it most effective and most impactful. That was an excellent tip, and it's one that I use as well. As we come to a close this evening, as we share with you our thoughts and let you see that we are starting to wrap up, I'm hoping that we were able to share with you some of the key components of a wonderful and effective speech evaluation, as well as how to put together an excellent speech. I'm going to not stop the recording, but I am going to stop the share, and I'm going to ask, are there questions? Are there comments? Are there suggestions? Anything that you might like to share with all of us or learn more from? Kate, you have your hand up.
Yes, I surely appreciate this seminar. So I understand there was a crossover of giving a good speech or a good evaluation in a manner as if it was giving a speech. In other words, you should use the same qualities of speaking and organization as you would as you would in the evaluation as you would a speech. I wonder, in a target speaker can give either a contest type speech or a pathway speech.
Mm-hmm.
They can do either one. So, you know, in a typical situation, you get the evaluation form from the person you're going to be evaluating, or you know what project they're working on or whatever. In the case of a target speaker that is giving a definite, you know, pathway speech, maybe it's their leadership style or whatever they might choose, do you recommend spending a certain percentage on the overall quality of the speech, and then hit the highlights about did they meet the project objectives and how they did that and how they might, in other words, do the sandwich, but do it based on their pathways achievement for the project?
Yeah, if we're talking about an evaluation that you give it at the club, then the answer is yes. You should talk about whether or not they met the objectives of the project that they're working on. I recommend that people create a speech around the purpose of the path as it connects to the specific project. If you look at the various paths, sometimes the projects will look identical. But if you craft your speech to the purpose of that path, is it humor? Is it leadership? Is it coaching? Then you have the opportunity as a speaker to learn more than if you're just throwing together a speech that generally meets the purpose of that project.
Yeah, I know.
So in the club meeting, the
Huh?
answer is yes. You evaluate speech in broad terms, and then you also evaluate how it met the goals because you have that evaluation form. Now, for a contest speech, they may be giving that speech to get credit on one of their paths, but you are oblivious to that as an evaluator. You have no idea that that's happening. And therefore, your evaluation is completely of the general nature that we talked about here this evening.
Okay, so generic evaluation.
Well, with specifics, but yes, but it not tied to a project at all.
Okay, great,
Yeah,
thank you.
Yeah, because
Okay.
I think the question was about speeches versus contest speeches being in a contest. And I think when you're in a contest, you do have to up your game and make sure that the speech is something to inspire, to motivate, to make the audience remember something, not just about talking about yourself and your own experiences,
Correct.
which I have found a lot of speeches have been about.
Right,
do you
it's
think
just in the
about that,
rule,
Sally?
the rule book specifically says that a target test speaker has a choice of giving a contest type speech or a pathways related project speech. And so I just wondered, you know, when you look at the contest evaluation ballot and all that stuff, and it really, even though it says it's during pathways, it really doesn't address it as specifically as it should to match the pathways component. If that's part of the evaluation, then, you know, we
Yeah,
should.
for
attempt to-
contests, for contests, they can give that kind of a speech, but it's not evaluated based on the project because there's no information given to the evaluator or to the audience that it is a project speech.
Right, and even if it's included in the introduction.
There is no introduction
There
unless
isn't.
the person giving the speech says, here I am today working on this project, doing this such and
Yeah,
such.
yeah,
But usually a speech that begins like that doesn't make it very high up the ranks.
right.
I'm
But
just
talking
saying.
no, I'm not, but see, a target speaker could be from
Oh,
anywhere.
a target
Yeah.
speaker. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
That's what it says, a
Target
target
speaker,
speaker
yeah.
can give any type of speech they want to.
No,
And
you're right. I
that's where-
apologize.
That's
No,
why
you're
I
right.
wanted to be sure which would be marked down if you didn't address it, you know?
Yeah, no, you're right.
So-
I went off the rails on that. So
So,
I
yeah,
don't,
it's a weird situation.
I haven't experienced that. Maybe that's something I need to do a little research on before I act like I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's just something I was kind of surprised that they didn't kind of change that as pathways moved along, maybe give some kind
Right.
of difference in that. But would potentially be, well, I guess now that they're narrowing down the paths and they're all fairly generic, at least the first 3 levels and all that, I guess a Toastmaster should be able to figure something out about it, just 1 or 2 points. But I think you
Right.
are on safer grounds by sticking to a generic evaluation.
Yeah, I would
factor that.
say so. Yeah. Does anybody else have any comments or questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.